So we offer a fairly comprehensive sort of service generally for everything to do with Web 2 marketing. And I sit as part of a center of expertise on Web 3, actually, and looking at how our clients can take advantage of these new technologies, both in virtual environments, in a kind of metaverse platform, but also using Web 3 technology in scenarios in the real world, using decentralized identity and wallets and NFTs, et cetera, in a kind of blended omni-channel experience across sort of virtual and real worlds. So yeah, we have a great team that we've been building over the past couple of years in that space, and we're already working on a number of different projects with our clients.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Katie. Great to have you here. And certainly, I think for projects like Boson, having sort of partners like yourself is really important for bridging into that sort of that mainstream appetite for metaverse and Web3 commerce. And as I know you share with me, I think the future adoption of these technologies about those kind of spanning partnerships, and so brilliant. Okay, perhaps I could switch next to Brian. Welcome. Perhaps you can just give us an overview of yourself and your organization's involvement in Web3 and metaverse commerce.
Yeah, Justin, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for having me. Brian Trunzo, Head of North American Business Development at Polygon Labs. Polygon Labs being the foundation of Polygon technology, the blockchain. If anyone is inside the metaverse right now, inside Decentraland, Spatial, or OVR, which I believe are the three platforms hosting Metaverse Fashion Week, you are on top of Polygon Rails. You are interacting with Polygon NFTs. So we thank you for that, helping us bring about mainstream adoption of Web3 technology and Polygon more specifically. So in my role, I come from the world of fashion, luxury, consumer. Did a little bit of agency work, so I love the folks over at Publicis, and we're working on some really great stuff together. So with that, taking that network, that experience, and bringing it to blockchain, helping to onboard some of the biggest brands, IP holders, entertainment companies into our technology.
Brilliant, thanks, Brian. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure most people are aware, but Boson has launched on Polygon, and I think a number of reasons why we made that decision, and think now we've launched it, absolutely sure that was the right decision. But not only is the tech now amazing, it works, and you continue to sort of innovate. So we've just announced that we'll be launching on your ZK EVM as well. I think you guys are just doing an amazing job, but also it's a network that everyone's at. So we've got lots of partners to connect to, but then also the support that you give us, both technically, but also from a sort of ecosystem point of view, and especially you, Brian, as the maven that you are. I mean, you're great partners, and so thanks, and great to have you here. Okay, so perhaps Agus. Welcome. Good to see you again. Perhaps you could do the same. You talk about your sort of background and obviously a bit about Decentraland.
Yeah, of course. So first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be here with all of you. I'm happy to meet you all, and I'm happy to discuss all these interesting topics about the metaverse and how commerce can affect and can contribute to the development of the metaverse. So my name is Agustin Ferreira. That's my short name, and I'm the executive director at the Decentraland Foundation, which is basically the main entity behind the Decentraland Protocol. For the ones that doesn't know Decentraland is a decentralized metaverse. We've been in the space for a while now. And our ethos, and how we see, the metaverse evolving is we really want to do and create and build a metaverse with our community and for our community. So that's why we are taking this decentralized approach. And that's why we have a DAO, and we have a community behind the project. And the Decentraland Foundation is right now the main entity that is taking care of the Decentraland client and the Decentraland technology, and doing big efforts to onboard brands and communities into the space. And starting to enable, different use cases on how the metaverse will start to merge with our, daily life.
Brilliant, thanks, Gus. And obviously the widget and toolkit that we're launching today is actually the second one that we've launched. We launched on our V1 prototype, and you've been sort of supporting us for quite a long time. And it's I think we've got very aligned values as projects in terms of enabling decentralization, being governed by communities, returning value to our community. And it's a pleasure to be on this sort of journey with you, Decentraland, and your community. So from all our Boson community as well, thank you for being here. Okay, last but certainly not least.
Yes, that's me, right?
David, yeah.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Dave Lockie. I am a Web3 lead at WooCommerce. WooCommerce is the de facto e-commerce engine that sits on top of WordPress. WordPress is open source software that's kind of synonymous with Web2. We've been around a long time. Everything's open ecosystem. We're very decentralized. We have contributors from all over the world. Automatic is a business that provides products and services primarily into that WordPress ecosystem. And WooCommerce is one of the business divisions there. So I guess we've been doing a lot of what crypto and Web3 are doing now since before it was cool. We've always been decentralized. We've always been async. We've always been open by default. WordPress powers about 40% of the web, and there are millions of merchants who choose WooCommerce as their place to sell online. And so our job, as much as anything else, is to serve those merchants who are continually innovating in the experiences they are creating for their shoppers, for B2B business experiences as well. And Metaverse is just one of those things that you can't ignore, like Web3, and obviously this year, like AI as well. So we're continually looking at what merchants are doing, what they're asking for, and I guess like laying the track in front of them as elegantly as we can, so that we are enabling people to create. Our mission is freedom to transact. WordPress is freedom to publish. WooCommerce is freedom to sell online, and that I think just strikes the core of what we're here to do, to help people sell online, but to do that sustainably, to make a good living online. And I think that is a really good common thread with what a lot of Web3 is about too.
Brilliant, and I would absolutely echo what you said about you've been sort of had that same ethos and vision of open source and decentralized for a lot longer than the Web3 movement. And again, I think this kind of next phase of Metaverse and decentralized commerce is about joining up a lot of the newer innovation that's happened with the kind of existing mainstream sellers and buyers. And great to have you here. And David, in your various roles, we've been sort of working together and partnering, and I think great to see you in that role, spearheading Web3 for WooCommerce, and what a great sort of fit that is. Okay, brilliant. So okay, if I sort of move on to our sort of first question then, really, where do you think we are with Metaverse commerce today? And I mean, for me, it feels like we are at this sort of turning point of tech adoption, where we've had this initial boom, and if you look at you listen to things like Gartner hype cycles, or look at technology adoption cycles, we've had this initial boom, and it feels now that we are sort of entering that turning point where we're going to see the real sort of adoption happening. I mean, my view is Metaverse is this next great interface. It's like going from black and white to color TVs. It's like the web is now becoming 3D and immersive. But perhaps we can get some views from around the panelists. Perhaps if we sort of stay with you, David, where do you think we are with Metaverse commerce today?
I think it's an interesting time for the web generally. One of the theories or theses that I've stuck with over time was the convergence. I can't remember the exact name of the paper. It came out of Outlier, who I know you're very familiar with, Justin, and that's really the way that I see what's happening with the web, is that all of the traditional boundaries, so education, work, play, fun, social, everything is sort of becoming increasingly convergent, and the metaverse is just part of that. It's just another way in which digital is becoming increasingly fundamental to the way that we all live our lives together. I think it's hard to imagine what a different evolution of the web, Web 2, Web 1, 2, and 3 looked like without imagining augmented reality, without imagining digital becoming an immersive part of experiences in much more nuanced but fundamental ways. Like, what is the other paradigm other than like ramming a matrix style thing in the back of our brains so that we're just continually hallucinating what's going on? I mean, that's naturally where things are going. I think just the crazy explosion of AI over the last 6 months or so has given us some good signal as to how that can happen, because now we've suddenly got these tools that can transform text to image, image to video, Web 2 to Web 3. Suddenly we can see a great path forward where we don't have to ignore everything that's happened with Web 2 in order to create this Web 3. Suddenly, like, that's the bridge. Like, this tech can just do that job of lifting and transforming and serving us that like hyper personalized experience in the right place at the right time. And I think the brands that are really looking at that opportunity are just moving forwards very quickly. And it's a thrilling time to be working in this space, although also terrifying because AI is freaking everyone out, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, so you're probably the man that sees the most behind the most curtains, I would say. Where do you think we are with metaverse commerce today? What sort of stage of its evolution do you think we're at?
Yeah, actually, this is such an appropriate question because I was waxing poetically yesterday about this on Twitter, so it's fresh in my memory. The analogy that I gave was it kind of feels like, using a dial-up modem to go on an AOL channel to buy something online, but the way that you bought it online was by calling someone and then receiving it through the mail, right? It kind of feels like we're there. And it kind of feels like what you are doing, of course, with your partners like WooCommerce, is taking a leap forward into the future, right? And a part of that leap is we talk about trustlessness and blockchain and Web3. A part of that is to establish some level of trust in the metaverse writ large, right? Similar to the way that people needed to trust that e-commerce payments would actually work. We all remember being quite skeptical of hammering your keyboard with your credit card information on a website, whether this was actually going to work, one, or whether someone would end up with your identity in some third world and take out lines of credit against your name. So, I think we're taking this leap forward, and I feel like folks like you guys over at Boson and the partnerships that you have at WooCommerce and the integrations that you're making inside worlds like Decentraland, that's what's happening here, right? And to bring Katie into the picture, the activations and experiences that are being developed there around, right, on Polygon's rails. So that includes all of us here. I would like to say, we're marching in tandem to get through that trust, to get through the next gate, and to bring about these experiences and these integrations in the way that they need to be brought about to actually make the metaverse a thing. And I think to just close that thought out, the metaverse will become a thing in my mind when we stop talking about it. I often joke around that we use terms like information superhighway to talk about the internet. And that we achieved minimal viable information superhighway when we stopped saying information superhighway. When we stopped talking about the internet, right? It would be very weird if we were to make a pronouncement right now that we were online, that we were on the internet, which we are indeed on the internet right now, right? We don't talk about the fact that we're on a Zoom, we're online, right? It just is. And I think that will happen with the metaverse. And I think it's because of folks like ourselves, doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we stopped prefixing words with the letter E, I think was a big was a good moment as well. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brian. I think also, I think in common what we're all sort of doing in a way is taking something that's inherently probably quite a bit more complex than Web 2 and trying to make that, dealing with that complexity so that we package something simple and usable to drive adoption. But great. And Katie, perhaps I could ask you, again, you've got this sort of like, you're the one speaking to all the brands and the clients, and where do you think we are with metaverse commerce today?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with the comments of the first two panelists, and we're definitely seeing this sort of trend towards convergence of a lot of really interesting technologies. So, kind of as I was referring to before, you're seeing the development of Web3 capability, but also AI moving along, and 5G and soon 6G networks, and sort of and that capability around the Internet of Things sort of evolving so that there are additional data signals to consume, and I think one of the panelists mentioned opportunities to kind of micro personalize experience. So all of those things are going to come together to impact commerce as well. And I think where we're at the moment, to take us a little bit away from Web3, I was actually just on a call this morning with some of our partners. We work with like Snap and TikTok and some of the existing sort of Web2 social channels, and they have gone very hard into commerce recently, and particularly into things like AR commerce. And I think that's a very good thing, a very positive thing as a step towards full virtual commerce in future as well, leveraging Web3 tech, because it's starting to change that behavior. It's starting to help people understand, like, actually there's value and there's advantages to being able to like do a virtual try on of some shoes, or look at a refrigerator in my flat, or that kind of thing. So I think behaviors are changing, and we're seeing that there are that the kind of younger generations are engaging with this more. They value virtual products more. So I think as some more of those consumers come online, as we also make the journey a bit easier and smoother into these virtual experiences as well for folks who are not Web3 natives. All of those things I can see are kind of in progress right now. I know we're all working on them, and I think the advancements in Web2 capabilities, like I was talking about on social channels, plus the advances and the improvement of the kind of user journey and the user experience for Web3 are all going to mean that, in a very small amount of time, people, as Brian was just kind of referring to, are just going to be doing this as part of their day to day, and they're not going to be thinking about whether they're doing it with a Web3 wallet or with NFTs or whatever. It's all going to be part of online experience. And the underlying technology is just going to enable us to do much cooler, new and different things. And I just look back, I know Brian gave a much older example, but even before the pandemic, so many people weren't shopping online, and overnight our behavior changed, that like loads more people were willing to purchase most of their goods online. And it wasn't for a particularly fantastic reason, but that has changed behavior significantly. So we know that there is sort of flexibility and adaptability in people's behavior, and that has changed much more quickly than anyone anticipated. So my anticipation is that this is going to happen very quickly. Once it's easy enough and it works like in a very well-designed kind of consumer interface, and all the sort of omni-channel sort of connections are made across different kinds of technologies and different areas where consumers are moving back and forth, which is all happening right now. All the infrastructure is being built for that, and we're all part of that journey. So I don't think it's very far off. I do think that there are some steps still to get there, but yeah, we're on the right path. Brilliant.
And yeah, I mean, certainly in terms of your knowledge of where those mainstream brands are and that sort of adoption of technology, it's certainly been a guiding light for me in our sort of product development. Yeah, so thanks for that insight. And finally, Gus, I mean, you guys were so early in this space, and you know, kudos for your sort of vision there. So you've seen a lot of growth and you know, I guess changes in the market as well. Where do you think we are with metaverse commerce today?
Yeah, totally. First of all, simply reiterating on what has already been said, I do believe that we are, you know, right now in the infancy stage of the metaverse, and this is a new medium, right? And a new way to basically on how we connect as human beings, right? And how this technology can really connect with our human senses and the way in which we build relationships, not only with humans, but also with products, right? And building relationships with products is a big part of buying a product, right? And buying experience, right? I remember, you know, back in the day when the internet was in its early stages, and Brian mentioned this, right? Newspapers and other traditional media outlets were among the first ones to adopt the technology, and they were initially marketing this as a new way to access and read newspapers. So, I mean, we don't fully understand the technology yet. I mean, and we are trying to somehow mimic what is already happening, you know, on our traditional, you know, mediums, and trying to bring that into, you know, this new medium. But the truth is that probably things will get reinvented in a way that we can envision right now at this point in time, right? So for me, you know, the heavy lifting that you guys at Boson Protocol and everyone here is doing, you know, and trying to onboard new users and trying to, you know, create new use cases and trying to somehow bring, you know, the experience in and try to bring, you know, the learnings from, you know, an industry. It's super important so that we start, you know, showcasing what can be done, and we start, you know, going through the you know, the experience and learnings and getting learnings on what are the things that really matter on this new medium, right? How this is going to look like in a few years from now. So I think that we are still at an infancy stage. We are doing a lot of experiments, and that's fine, and we are learning a lot in the process. But for sure, we will start seeing, you know, this deeply connected with our daily lives. AR technology is something that makes a lot of sense at this point in time. Being able to super boost your, you know, by the way in which you buy and the experience that you have there. And I see that connected in the near future with also being involved, you know, in the metaverse. Actually, there are some, you know, companies right now, some movies that what they're trying to do is they're trying to have like QR codes on their tickets. So whenever you finish watching a movie, you can go to the metaverse and have, you know, like a, you know, ongoing experience, and somehow, you know, and I think that's, you know, critical. How can we boost and how can we empower, you know, the physical experience and bring that into the metaverse and really go crazy what can be done in the metaverse that can be done on the physical, you know, layer. So early days, we are still in the infancy, but we are slowly but steadily getting there.
I completely agree with that analysis. I mean, it reminds me, you know, the first iteration of like web commerce, where you'd have like, you know, you'd have a travel agent that would have like put up a website, and it would say, if you're interested in a picture of like a beach, if you would like to book a holiday, phone this number and book an appointment to come into the high street, and we'll go through some brochures and book you travel. And that was e-commerce version 1, right? Move on like 10, 15 years. There are no high street travel agents, that, you know, there are no static web pages. Everything is now just booked there and then online. And it's a completely different kind of economy. And I think you're absolutely right. We're seeing that kind of mimicry, but actually, you know, fast forward 10 years, and I think it's going to be, you know, I think you're going to have like AI. You walk down the street and you'll have like, you know, your Google Glass type things on. AI will detect that you quite like, you know, that handbag, for example. It will detect that. It will do a search for it and double blink, and you can go and buy it, hopefully using a technology like Boson. And that will be whether you're in real life, whether you're in the metaverse or whatever. And, you know, I think we're looking at a major paradigm shift there. So brilliant. Okay, so moving on then from, you know, where we are sort of today, you know, what's your sort of vision of the metaverse in sort of the next 5 years? And I guess, how do we see, do you see this as sort of predominantly a more proprietary, more Web2 metaverse, a more decentralized sort of Web3 metaverse, or some sort of hybrid? I guess perhaps I'll stay with Agus, you being such an expert on this area, but how do you see this sort of the metaverse evolving?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. First thing that I would like to say is I truly believe that things like Decentraland, really open source and decentralized versions of the metaverse need to exist. I truly believe that at this point in time, maybe privacy is not one of the key things that the public currently sees, but in the future, it's going to become something super important for all of us as we start to understand why our information matters, right? And what is being done with our information everywhere, right? So I truly believe that at this point in time, the metaverse is somehow evolving the web is evolving into the metaverse. And what I mean by that is like, in the next few years, I don't see us, using a headset and, spending a large amount of our time, basically using this device. What I see is like websites slowly but steadily becoming, a much more immersive experience. And part of those experiences will probably have some kind of immersion component into that. So at some point you will get immersed into the experience. But given the current market and given the current technical limitations, I don't believe that the world will be ready, let's say in 3-4 years from now, so that the entire world adopts devices like the Oculus Quest, just to name an example, right? Let's see what Apple has in mind with their AR glasses. But I do believe that what we will see in the next few years is things like Boson, protocol, what you are doing, and also commerce, basically evolving the traditional web experience into something that is more immersive, right? Let's say that you go to Walmart and you want to do your groceries. Well, maybe there is like a jump into the metaverse experience, whatever, and you get to have a more immersive experience with AI NPCs guiding you through the process and basically allowing you to do your checkout. That's where we see, basically the next, where we see the metaverse going in the next few iterations. Obviously, we will get to a point where, we will have, glasses and we will have the devices and the technology ready, the hardware ready. But in the short run, I think that, it's much more about building digital identities and letting people understand why the technology is important, and them slowly and steadily finding ways to understand why it's boosting their the experience whenever buying something.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, Brian, can I ask you that same question? What's your sort of vision of metaverse and metaverse commerce in the next 5 years? How do you see this evolving?
Yeah, the word that I used to describe it is simply unstoppable, or inevitable. I think this convergence of our physical and digital selves will be like an asymptote. My calculus teacher from high school would be proud to hear me say that.
Nice word.
I don't really know what it means. Justin, I'm non-technical, right? So with that, your digital life approaching the line that is your physical life infinitely closer and closer, never actually merges, because that would be metaphysically impossible. So I do subscribe to that vision. And to use the 5-year marker as a jumping point for thought or predictions, that puts us in 2028. And if anyone believes or thinks there's any level of accuracy to the reports that Citi put out earlier in 2022, I think it was probably towards the middle of the year in the summer, they're projecting the metaversal economy to be $10 trillion by 2030. So that puts us really close to 2030. So we're going to have to figure out this whole hardware thing and this whole compute thing pretty quickly to reach those numbers. But using that as a North Star and a guide, it sounds somewhat believable. So I think the next 5 years might feel like 50 years in terms of the velocity of change. It often feels to people who are not living and breathing technology like shifts changed overnight. People were unaware of the advancements in the iPhone and the level of sophistication that was happening inside one's pocket in terms of camera technology, and which enabled Instagram, which enabled, copying off the timeline, social shopping, which enabled live streaming. People like, oh, live streaming just like came out one day. It was here, and it actually took quite some time. So I think the 5-year mark puts us dangerously close to that 10 trillion number in 2030. And I'm a pretty pessimistic person in life generally, for anyone who knows me personally, but in blockchain, for some reason, I'm the eternal optimist. And I believe that hook, line, and sinker that by 2030, we'll hit 10 trillion. So in the next 5 years, I think we're going to see quite a bit of change.
Yeah, I mean, well, I recently saw a chart showing the adoption rates of technologies over time from railroads, TVs, and the curve just gets steeper and steeper and steeper, and down from decades to months and weeks. So I think let's shoot for 10 trillion in 5 years. I think we can work with that. So Katie, can I ask you the sort of same question? From your perspective, where do you what's your vision of the metaverse and metaverse commerce in 5 years?
Yeah, I think as I was hinting at in my first comments, I do think that this is going to accelerate quite rapidly. We're already seeing a number of our clients who are investing quite heavily in this area, and seeing a lot of success in some areas that may seem a bit more obvious, like virtual fashion, for example, so things that your avatar can wear. I think it will be very important to take, in terms of the next step, even with virtual fashion, to work together as an industry to ensure interoperability so that people can use those virtual fashion items in many different sort of metaverse environments, because that is what people are going to expect when they purchase, for example, a virtual Adidas shoe. They're going to want to be able to use that in multiple different kinds of experiences. Just like they move between social channels now, they're going to want to have that portability. So I think it'll be important for all of us to sort of think about that future vision and the design of, and what the consumer expectation is going to be. But certainly we're already seeing, I've done some research sort of thinking about where the fashion industry is, and there's already billions and billions of dollars that are being kind of transacted in virtual fashion. And I think it's not far off before other brands start thinking about what are the virtual goods and services that they can offer. Maybe it isn't a literal translation of their physical good, for example, like a virtual deodorant. But what they can start to think about is other value-added transactions, other value-added things that they can offer, perhaps access to content, access to a membership group or a subscription to something that is a new and different business model that they can leverage Web3 technology to explore, that their customers also value. So there's tons of stuff that brands can do in this space, not necessarily taking it as literally as I need to create a virtual version of my product, but they can create new value streams, new business models, et cetera, in order to take advantage of this. And I think building Web3 commerce in the right way, to think ahead with those brands about what the consumer is going to want to anticipate what the consumer is going to want next, is going to be very important to build that web infrastructure to not just think about it in terms of sort of things or what used to be physical objects. So but certainly it's really interesting we're currently going through the process of that thinking with a lot of our customers, and helping them to kind of anticipate what is going to happen in the next few years, and where the value and the brand relationship is going to be going forward, and what they can do with their brand assets and their brand intellectual property as well in these spaces. And it's really interesting. You're going to see companies that are a bit of a different version of themselves in the not too distant future. So and lots of additional cool ways that you can engage with a brand.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, I think at the moment, our focus is very much on this kind of, still quite linear commerce, Web3 commerce, Metaverse commerce, because it's complex enough. But, you know, as you and I have discussed, you know, at length, the real fundamental change is now that this substrate is programmable, right? It's not like Web2 commerce where you send me some money, I'll send you some goods. We can program and token gate and condition, and we can, you know, build experiences and loyalty. And I think once we get beyond the slight, you know, cognitive shift of this new space, we're really going to see this new sort of toolbox, or, you know, maybe more like a toy box for brands to play with. And I think that's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned there about loyalty is a very, very interesting area that's starting to really, our customers are taking notice of that quite a bit now. And that was kind of one of the things on my mind when I was thinking about new areas of value. So we're totally aligned.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And then finally, David, where do you see sort of the metaverse and metaverse commerce sort of heading in the next sort of 5 years?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on Brian's 10 trillion comment. I mean, who knows what the dollar is going to be worth in that time frame, I think, is the other side of that equation, right? So I think we'll see different realms with different models. So metaverse, of course, is not like a singular unified thing. It's just the opening up of infinite possibility to interact with the world around us. And there will be different realms. There'll be proprietary ones, there'll be open ones, and there'll be different models that sit behind those. I bet that open systems like Polygon, like Decentraland, like WooCommerce, like Boson will be able to compete very effectively with proprietary systems, because the sheer speed of innovation is going to start disrupting even our own ability to design organizations that can move at that kind of pace. Like, we're going to move from, you know, this kind of illusion of control that we have at the moment to just full-on capitulation of like, okay, this is just emergent, we're all going to just do our best, and like what happens. I think we'll start to focus a lot more on the experiences, and so protocols that are critical infrastructure will know when they're working really well, because they'll be invisible. Brian, as you said, like we'll just stop talking about this stuff and we'll just be doing it. You know, we'll be buying the shoes. We won't be thinking, oh, I've got this NFT for the shoes that I can redeem. And I think importantly, as people increasingly rely on digital for their livings, for their livelihoods, for the money that puts food on their table and feeds their family, I do think that freedom becomes more important. You know, the freedom to not be, you know, kicked off platforms and have your terms of service breached, like close you down. If that's, you know, if your entire lifestyle and your family's welfare depends on this business that you have online, the value that you're creating online, I really hope for all of our sakes that we don't sort of put one single point of failure beneath us as we go about trying to live. Katie, you've talked about accessibility of experiences, and I think like where we see merchants and brands winning is where they just assume this is already here. And, you know, in many ways, the metaverse is already here. You know, everyone's either looking at their phone or listening to something, and metaverse isn't just about like putting on glasses. Like, we have many senses, and I think we just forget how augmented, how cyborg we already are. It's just that it's all a bit janky, and you know, every month, every year that goes past, it becomes less janky, and sometimes there are these big sort of paradigm, like more tangible paradigm shifts. But I think one of the things that this AI bloom has really brought home to me is the power of making those experiences accessible to other people. So now that people can just like talk at a computer, you know, whether you're temporarily or permanently disabled, whatever age you are, whatever language you speak, wherever you are in the world, like suddenly you can access like the sum total of human knowledge and this incredibly powerful technology in ways that even if you've got a smartphone, you know, you need to be able to turn it on and like tap the screen and open a browser and do this stuff. Like, we forget just how many barriers to those experiences that there still are, even with all this power at our fingertips. And I think as those start falling away, everything just becomes like more and more metaverse, more and more is indistinguishable from like our unaugmented lives. But I'm also with Agus in that I think, you know, I mean, like we vary in age a little bit, but like none of us are Gen Zers, right? And we need to stop fooling ourselves. Like the real innovation happens with the next generation. It's like just the profundity of change that is coming. Like it requires generational shift as well. Like our neurochemical pathways are too hardwired already. Like we're going to be doing well to cope with what's coming, let alone like imagine that we're going to be innovating in any real ways. But I think within that, what I hope is that people are going to start using these technologies to find incredible new ways to spend time together. You know, we've really like stuck this whole mash of complex technology between us in so many ways. You know, we'd spend time looking at our phones rather than looking at our kids or whatever it is. So I'm really hoping that as Metaverse breaks down those sort of barriers between regular and enhanced experiences, that gives more time for people to be together, to do the things that matter to us, you know, as humans. But I genuinely think like we're creating with the internet, we've created this thing, like it's an artifact that we don't ourselves understand. And so we just need to like relinquish a bit of control and enjoy it and have fun and try and do like the good that we can do every day for each other. Like I think anything more than that is going to become like hard to imagine that we're still in control of as the years roll through.
Brilliant. I mean, I shall take from that is that yes, this illusion of control, we're really not. We're in this kind of evolving complex system, and maybe we need to just kind of surf that a little bit. But
none of us were like, you know, as soon as we had a smartphone in our hand, like none of us are equipped to deal with this.
Yeah. Well, it may be, you know, what Ray Kurzweil referred to many years ago as the sort of singularity. And maybe we're in that singularity now, right? And the rate of technological change just starts to accelerate just by such a degree. We shall see. But, you know, just wanted to say a massive thank you, Brian, David, Agus, and Katie. I mean, such insight here, and you know, great to have you all here. And yeah, well, I look forward to getting us together again next year and seeing whether we are, you know, in the midst of this great big transition, how we've progressed, and how our predictions, how accurate they were. But thank you all for joining us, and yeah, keep up the great work, and great to be partnering with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you very much.